Released in 1990 for the TurboGrafx-16 and kicking off a short run of games released over the following couple of years, Bonk's Adventure places you in the role of Bonk, a little cave boy with a very big head who has to save the dinosaur princess from the moon thing from King Drool thing. Your adventure will take you across 5 worlds spanning 20 plus levels, and will have you venturing through various locales, whether it be grasslands, caverns, or even the innards of a giant dinosaur. For most levels, your only goal is to reach the end of the level. On the final level of each world, you'll have to confront a boss and defeat them to progress onwards. You have a health meter that starts with 3 hearts, but you can gain more hearts as you progress, and you lose a life when said health is depleted. The nice thing about Bonk is that after you lose a life, you could watch Bonk sleep comfortably without worry of harm until you press the run button to wake him up and continue where you left off, which amuses me somewhat. Once all your lives are lost, it's game over, though you could continue your adventure if you wish, which restarts you back to the beginning of a world, or if you've passed a certain level, which, you don't have to start the whole thing, because some worlds are longer than others, and such as it is. Bonk's main weapon is his head, his noggin. He can headbutt folks while airborne, or he can do it on the ground, though grounded headbutts pack less of a punch than those delivered from the sky, above or below. Learning to use the headbutt as an effective weapon is key to survival in Bonk's Adventure, and if you rapidly mash the headbutt button while airborne, Bonk will spin in the air and that will slow his descent somewhat. Enabling the turbo switch on your turbo controller will enable Bonk to stay airborne for a little while longer, which is useful for skipping segments or holding off falling to reach an otherwise unattainable goal. Is it a bit of a cheat? Perhaps, but if it's part of the package, then sure, why not? It's another tool to add to the arsenal. Now, as you venture through this land of prehistory, you'll come across flowers that you could bonk for stuff depending on the flower. Some flowers will yield power-ups like meat, which provide you with a more powerful headbutt, and eventually temporary invincibility, health replenishing fruit, or life-extending heart containers. Some flowers can be used as trampolines to propel you to higher ground, and some flowers will chase you and try to kill you because they just don't like you. Bonk's Adventure is the typical mascot adventure, a simple, straightforward side-scrolling platformer game thing where you have to go from left to right, you collect gimmicks, you beat the bad guys with your noggin, and you get a couple pieces of meat to help you out. Controls are simple to pick up and understand, they work somewhat, though they do have a couple quirks that you need to work around, particularly when it comes to climbing walls with your teeth or trying to fit in narrow passages. Even the jumping at times feels a bit floaty for my tastes. The game also has a tendency to suffer from rare but still notable collision issues, which tends to pop up more often during boss fights but never to a truly detrimental degree. Still, despite these quirks, Bonk is a largely functional and enjoyable little platform game, and there's more than enough good to the core of the gameplay that overcomes the less positive aspects, which might be a turnoff for some, but it certainly didn't hinder my enjoyment of the game otherwise. Bonk's Adventure is a colorful little platform game that adopts a rather simplistic but otherwise charming little animated style with some comparatively larger character sprites and set pieces. When it comes to the backdrops and the settings, they're somewhat on the plain side, but good enough to fit the visual theme of the game. Really, the highlight are the varied and creative characters on display, all sorts of wacky looking dinosaurs and critters and things of that nature. Even Bonk himself has plenty of personality, waiting to be unlocked with meats and stuff. That probably sounded better on charcoal. With that in mind, on the audio front, you get a handful of low-key, basic-sounding melodies that play throughout the game's various levels. Not a huge pool of songs, mind you. Some of these do get reused a few times, and certainly nothing that would stand out to anyone but the most devout Bonk or TurboGrafx aficionados, but certainly pleasant tunes to fit the mood of the world you're in. And the sound effects have enough tinny punch to them that each headbutt hits with plenty of concussive impact. I don't know, sounded better on paper. So I would argue that if Bonk's Adventure was your designated pack-in title as opposed to Keith Courage, which was what it was originally packed with, the TurboGrafx-16 would have been a much bigger hit from the get-go. Bonk's Adventure might be slightly more involved than The Plumber, and perhaps not quite as polished, but it is a perfect introductory game to the grander PC Engine world, and is a pretty fun adventure in its own merit. The game did see ports over to the Nintendo Entertainment System and the Game Boy, but I cannot speak for the quality of those ports. I did enjoy Bonk's Adventure on the Turbo, and if you enjoy cutesy platformer games with a fair dose of challenge and charm, this is one worth checking out. And maybe one of these days we'll dive into the follow-ups.